today's story that I want to specifically highlight kind of consolidates all of that and goes along with what we've been saying for a very long time, with, of course, a very sinister narrative coming from the Donald Trump administration, which I believe has been somewhat confirmed from Bob Woodward's new book. If you don't know who Bob Woodward is, he's one of the leading investigative journalists who was behind Watergate and brought down Nixon. He was given access to the Trump administration, and some of the things that he talked about absolutely correspond with everything we've been saying and everything we've been attacked for ever since Donald Trump got into office and even before he got into office. So one of the first stories that I wanted to bring up is the scary events that unfolded between two nations just a few hours ago, where we saw airstrikes from Israel target Damascus, Syria. And of course, these were Israeli missile attacks, which the Syrian, of course, state-run media says was thwarted. And there are videos, daunting, scary videos of missiles being shot down over an international fair that was happening inside of Damascus. Israel, of course, at first didn't confirm these strikes were their responsibility, but then just a few moments ago, they came out and said that these strikes were mainly against weapons depots that were supposedly meant for Iran or, I like how the or is there, Hezbollah. And of course, Israel is saying that they are enforcing their, quote, red line and will take more aggressive actions to make sure that their enemies aren't supplied with weapons. And as we know, this is not the first time Israel has committed such an aggressive action against another nation, since Israel admitted just a few days ago that they attacked Syria over 200 times ever since 2017. And the targets that they are mainly going after are Shia targets, Syrian government targets, not what the Syrian government is fighting, which is Sunni, Wahhabist, radical Islamic rebels, which they also admitted a few days ago that they were supporting and arming, but the forces that are fighting them, which are, of course, backed somewhat by the Iranians, which they see as their main enemy in this entire geopolitical complex situation. But as the battle for the last rebel stronghold happens, we are seeing Putin and Erdogan, Russia and Turkey, come to the table and discuss their next moves. This is mainly because the United States has said if the Syrian government, along with the Russians, does attack Idlib, the United States will respond. The United States was warning Russia and the Syrian government not to do this. And of course, this has sparked a lot of outrage, very little discussion in the mainstream media. But one of our representatives, Congressman Tulsi Gabbard, after 9/11, went on the House floor and said that, quote, this is the betrayal of American people. She said this specifically after 9/11, and the case is very solid here. And a case, of course, is not being put together by a lot of other people, but we're going to do this here right now because in the province of Idlib that the United States and Donald Trump with Nikki Haley, who that they're guarding and protecting and warning other nations not to attack, just a couple of moments ago, we got a news report from Reuters that a man and woman were stoned to death in that province for adultery. And if you don't know what that means a man and a woman having consensual sex outside of marriage. This shows you the place that Idlib is because it is mainly a radical Islamic terrorist linked area, with some estimates saying that there are over 10,000 Al-Qaeda linked members inside of Idlib. And the mainstream media and, of course, the papers are pushing out propaganda saying that Donald Trump is insufficient. And they're demanding more bombs and attacks on Syria in order to protect frickin' Al-Qaeda. And this is right on the aftermath of 9/11, where the official story says that Al-Qaeda attacked us. And now the United States, with Donald Trump, with Nikki Haley, they're going after and doing their best to protect over 10,000 Al-Qaeda members in a radical Islamic held territory that they're stoning people for adultery. So 17 years later, after 9/11, the U.S. is now using its military might to shield rather than eradicate Al-Qaeda. And this is just utterly insane. And this is insane on many different levels because it is also bringing us closer to war and a very dangerous geopolitical situation between the United States and Russia, which, of course, are on opposing sides of this proxy war that has been happening there, that has been provoked by Western interest years ago. And that's why we're seeing more dramatic footage of Russian war games. We're seeing American war games, and we're seeing these military might, these world powers, flex and saber rattle over this key geopolitical battle that, of course, is protecting the enemy that attacked us and that is still committing terrorist attacks in the West, Wahhabiist. This absolutely makes no sense. The United States is on the wrong side of this, and I have to say this too. Donald Trump is on the wrong side of this, and tensions are only escalating through our proxy ally, Israel, that is now just launching bombs into Damascus over a freaking international festival, deteriorating the situation to a very horrible, horrible place. And we got more insight into this, and what really collaborates everything that we've been saying. Ever since I saw Donald Trump meeting with Henry Kissinger, I warned people, Donald Trump's not going to be the president that he campaigned to be. He's sitting there with Henry Kissinger. I'm seeing all the people he's putting in his administration. I'm seeing the early moves that he's making. This is not going to turn out well for the American people, for the entire world. And we got an insight with that from Bob Woodward. Bob Woodward, again, famous investigative journalist, brought us Watergate, brought down Richard Nixon as president of the United States. And he was given access inside the Trump administration, inside of the White House. And he has written a new book called Fear. Now, with the release of this book, Donald Trump is already pushing back and saying that, quote, this book is a scam. He's saying that the quotes in this book are made up. And he is calling the book a joke, with Woodward being, quote, a liar who was and is a Democratic operative prior to the midterms. This are, of course, very strong words by the president of the United States, pushing back against Bob Woodward and saying that he is lying. But the official record now shows that it was actually Donald Trump who is lying, as we are seeing a transcript released by Bob Woodward that contradicts directly what Donald Trump is saying. And if you look, the president said on record that he never got any messages. The president of the United States claimed that people who are paid to answer to him don't tell him everything. So after reports surfaced that the president was annoyed that he wasn't asked to participate in Woodward's book, the Washington Post released an on-the-record recording and transcript of what can only be called a truly bizarre conversation that proves that the president did, in fact, know of the book and is essentially lying. So we already caught Donald Trump in a small lie here, officially, with what he said and what the transcript and what the recording actually said. You could actually listen to the two. And already, the strong accusations by Bob Woodward are more empowered because of these lies that Donald Trump is now saying on the public record. And if you look at Fear, there are a lot of incredible revelations there. Whether you believe Bob Woodward or not, a lot of this does collaborate everything we've been saying when we were following the foreign policy situation of Donald Trump ever since he got into office. And one of the things is the people in his administration view Iran and Hezbollah as their main enemy. And one of their administration officials who was within Trump's administration regarded them as, quote, idiot raghead mullahs. And they talk about how people inside Trump's administration view the Shia movement and Hezbollah as a, quote, ticking time bomb and America's main concern in the region. And of course, this is just absolutely ridiculous. If you look at the bigger correlation here between the Shias and the Sunnis and the bigger effect that they have on this world. But Bob Woodward describes what he sees as a excitable bloodlust running through Trump's administration, with them being also weary of a catastrophic war between Israel and Iran. So that is a major revelation that came out from all of that. Mr. Woodward also goes on that Trump is full of emotions. He calls Jim Mattis, after the supposed chemical weapons attack inside of Syria by allegedly Bashar al-Assad, which of course was blamed on him. And Donald Trump's reaction was, quote, let's effing kill him. The president said of Bashar al-Assad, let's go in, let's kill the effing lot of them. This was a direct quote from Donald Trump, according to Bob Woodward. And he writes, the American military, Woodward writes, had the capability to launch a covert, top secret leadership airstrike in Syria, and this was called on for by Donald Trump. And a lot of this, according to Bob Woodward, happened because of Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump. And the article goes on, an old family friend of Benjamin Netanyahu, Jared Kushner, has a vision of the Middle East that seems an even stronger Israel, lavishly supported at all costs by the United States. And if you look at the foreign policy of Donald Trump, that's effectively what he did. Ivanka also worked with Trump over Syria, showing him pictures of gassed children and bombed babies and stoking the sentimental fury that fills her father. And of course, it goes on to even the point where Woodward mentions how the Secretary of State, Mathis, was even alarmed that Donald Trump might order a second strike on the Syrian military and worked to tame down Trump and discourage more military actions inside of Syria, which Donald Trump was demanding. And according to Bob Woodward, it was Mathis who calmed him down and stopped him from launching more airstrikes and a, quote, covert option to bomb and kill Bashar al-Assad to get rid of him as the leader of Syria. And again, it was also Kushner, according to Woodward's book, who pushed for Donald Trump's first presidential trip to be inside of Saudi Arabia. And it is Kushner who believes more than anyone that the Israeli Gulf axis that is coming more and more will and should dominate the Middle East. When he's talking about Israel Gulf, he's talking about Israel and Saudi Arabia, and that's exactly what we've been calling out against on this main YouTube channel. And we have seen the correlations. We have seen Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the United States stand together, not against terrorism, but for their greater geopolitical interest, for self-interest of themselves, rather than actually defeating global jihadism, which their actions inadvertently or on purpose have spread. And this is also very important because with Donald Trump, according to Woodward, pushing for such close interventionism, if you look at all the history, if you look at everything that happened, it has never been helpful. It has never accomplished. It has never claimed any good in the world, especially in the last recent years when it was pushed by the American military-industrial complex on the American people that acted against other nations. So this is very fascinating and very interesting to see Bob Woodward's explanation, his quotes, his work that he has and says that he documented, he recorded, and has notes on, and has been verified by other journalists, because this absolutely does make sense with everything that we've been saying about these the alliance that is unspoken about in mainstream media, but drives American foreign policy into the dirt, not only financially, not only morally, but also corrupts and creates a situation in the world that is more unsafe than ever, promoting Sunni Wahhabis, promoting overthrowing of leaders, overthrowing of countries, democratizing countries, which ultimately spreads sectarian violence, failed states, and worldwide radical Islamic terrorism, and just a horrible situation for everyone, creating that cycle that the military-industrial complex loves of propping up the enemy, destroying the enemy, rebuilding the city, destroying the city, and that cycle just continues on and on and on, and it looks like it will not end, especially because of Donald Trump and the revelations that we just found out from Bob Woodward.